Okay, so we're here today with Gary Fogarty, who is a bush poet. Now he's come along to the Caloundra Powerboat Club for their spring hay run. So which is really, I mean, I think it's a great cause. Farmers are doing it tough, they need our help. And with the help of a lot of artists coming along and you know, giving their time, hopefully we can raise some really good money and get some bales of hay out there to them. So tell us a little bit about you, Gary. Are you from here? Are you local? How did you end up playing this gig? I know it's tomorrow morning, so we all got to get up bright and early, 8 a.m. Gary's here. Let's be here to support him. So just tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, Joe. I come from a little town called Millmerran, which is only 1,200 people.
Yep.
We're an hour out of Toowoomba, heading along the Gore Highway towards Goondiwindi. And I grew up as the son of rural producers. Mum and Dad had a mixed property, growing grain and running sheep and cattle. And I actually had my own cattle property at Chinchilla for a while. And there's lots of worthwhile charities out there. Helping out our rural producers is very close to my heart. Not only are rural people my people, that's where I've come from, but back in the early 90s I was one of the first 6 drought relief workers appointed by the state government to help people who were suffering the drought back then. In that position I addressed the Queensland Press Club on the social impacts of the drought on rural families. I gave evidence to the Senate Standing Committee on Drought, and I became the only ever individual member of the government industry body on drought. I gate crashed one of their meetings and addressed the meeting
As you do.
without notice, and they elected me on the spot to sit on that committee. So it's very close to my heart. Unfortunately, it's not just drought that affects our rural producers these days. There's a whole raft of things, like governments on both sides of politics who bring in policies that make it difficult, big business who refuse to pay anywhere near the cost of production for a lot of rural produce, mining companies filing for leases on very high quality agricultural, unions making it more and more difficult to employ farm workers, and one of the big ones, a media who are reluctant to report on at all the trials and tribulations of our rural people. And when they do report on it, they only skim the surface. They don't dig down and get to the real core of it. So, I applaud the Caloundra Powerboat Club for this initiative. They've picked rural aid through their Buy a Bale initiative, and there couldn't be a better way for people to spend their money and support what I see as being an essential charity in this country. Our rural people out there are doing it amazingly tough, and we need to start looking after them better.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think, like you said, people in the city really don't get how tough our farmers are doing it.
They certainly don't, and in saying that, I don't place any blame at the feet of city people. You know what you know. I think it's up to us.
The media only give us so much.
Yeah, and rural Australia has always been a very resilient, not ask for help type community. And I think it's up to us as members of the rural community to promote to city people how tough it is, what's going on out there, be a little bit more open about it, not be afraid to let them know that the industry requires help, because we can't blame the city people for not knowing. We need to educate them.
Yes.
Because just as a matter of interest, I wrote a poem about 18 months ago called Every Day We Bleed about exactly the issue faced by rural producers. A seniors club from Callumvale in the middle of Brisbane asked me if they could read the poem out at their meeting, which they did. They immediately passed a resolution to start a drought relief movement within their group, and they have so far raised over $60,000, that one group.
It's amazing.
And so many tonnes of goods they've taken out to drought affected areas from just one poem. So city people do care, we just need to let them know.
Well, that's exactly right, and I think the more that we can get the message out, the more people hear it, and then the more they understand just how serious the problem is. I mean, it's not just the small bits that we hear. We have to look at like suicide and all of those things. Farmers deal with this, they struggle.
Yes.
Mental issues then become a real problem, and if we're able to help, then let's help. Let's get in there and help. I mean, it might be $20 here or $2 there, or every little bit helps out somehow.
Well, I think if people give what they can afford. And like Australians have proved time and time again, doesn't matter if it's the Southeast Asian tsunami, an earthquake in Nepal, bushfires in Sydney, the big floods in Brisbane. Australians rallied around and helped. They're very generous people. We just need to let them know that there is a huge need out there at the moment. And it's not always about the dollar. I think there's a great value, especially for rural people, in them even knowing that people realise the plight they're in.
Yes.
And, just if you've got a friend who lives in a rural area that you know is doing it tough at the moment, ring them up and let them know you're thinking about them. That small act of kindness means so much in so many circumstances.
I definitely agree. So how did you end up playing this gig? Like, are you a friend of Coles? Are you a friend of the Powerboat Club? How did you end up being able to play here tomorrow morning?
Well, I've known Cole for a long time. Cole's a great entertainer in his own right, and he's taken on a role in recent years of promoting different events. And Cole's always been a fan, not just of me, but of all bush poets and what bush poetry brings to country music events. And when he got involved here with the Powerboat Club, he was very keen to get bush poets on board. And so he contacted Ray Esri and myself. Ray and I work a lot together, just by coincidence more than by design, but we do work together well, I think. And Ray comes from a coastal dairying property on the north coast of New South Wales. I'm sort of more further west in Queensland with my background, but we're both appreciative of the hard times that rural people go through, and we're only too happy to come along and help Cole out when he told us what he was doing here. So.
Yeah, of course. Well, I've really enjoyed chatting to you. I think the message getting out there to for people to understand just how tough our farmers are doing it, and it's not just the farmers out west either. I mean, local ones are doing it, tough for all different reasons.
And Joe, that's one of the messages we got across: the flow-on effect. Like, take for instance, at the moment there has been some rain in the western properties. Those properties were basically, they sold off all their stock during the height of the dry. Now they need to restock. They've had enough rain to grow grass. Because so many cattle were sold off and slaughtered, and some just shot during the dry time, cattle are a very scarce commodity. They are more expensive now than they've ever been. So those people who may have had to shoot their cattle are now forced into a situation, if they restock, they've got to pay these exorbitant prices to get cattle. That and the lack of cattle out there not only affects them, it affects all our transport operators. They're affected, of course. The tyre companies, the fuel companies are all affected.
It's ongoing, isn't it?
And then, of course, you've got all the small rural towns who they suffer along with the rural producers, and are often overlooked just a little bit. I feel, and that's a shame, because you take it, if you own a hardware store in a Western Queensland area that's badly affected by drought. What usually happens is the farmer comes in because he's doing it tough. He puts something on tick for a while. He might not be able to pay for 6 months, and that puts more financial strain then on the hardware store or the butcher shop or even the local hairdresser. So we need to look at it more holistically. It's not only the people on the properties, it's also the communities that support them and the businesses that support them that do it hard during these times.
Yep, I agree. So we're going to be here tomorrow morning, 8 a.m, bright and early. I'm going to be here. Gary's going to be here.
Definitely.
And we're going to listen to some really, really good bush poets. And you should all come on down, because it's definitely going to be worth it.
Yeah, and bush poetry these days might not be what people expect if they haven't been to a bush poetry show. There's a lot of humour in modern day bush poetry. We write about modern themes. We will be doing some poetry of the old masters just to sort of celebrate our heritage and where we've come from, but most of it will be contemporary stuff about today's topics. So.
No, definitely. Well, thanks very much for your time.
Joe, it's been a pleasure.
Now, just before we go though, we need to know, for those people that are really into bush poetry, for some people that are not sort of sure what it is, where can they find you?
I've got a webpage, garyfogarty.com. I've got a Facebook page as well,
and all the information's there.
Yeah, there's an Australian Bush Poets Association. You can join that for a fee of about $35 a year. And while it doesn't have every bush poetry event in there, it does help you keep up with your favourite bush poets and different events that are happening around the country.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure.
And we'll be in Tamworth.
So will I. We'll have to see you there.
I'll be at the Frog and Toad listening room from Monday through to Friday, running the Poets Showcase Breakfast.
Oh, lovely. Awesome. Well, thanks very much for your time today, and we'll see you tomorrow for breakfast.
My pleasure, Joe.
Thank you.